his Canadian boys, and he hates Russians. I mean, he's publicly said that before. I'm not too sure how he feels about Americans, but I'm assuming he pretty much loves just Canadians based off what we've seen. And I've seen enough of him that, and I think everybody in Canada has. Some people still love him, but I've kind of jumped shift and moved the other way.
It's the old timers. Interesting to note, Man Games Lost on Twitter. They track every team in the NHL. I think they do all sports, really all major sports. They track how many games have been lost due to injury. The Ducks, as of last night, rank 4th behind Montreal, Buffalo, and Vancouver, and then just ahead of Boston. And then you look at the impact of that. Interesting to note here just how much adversity the Ducks have been dealing with if we get past the goaltending on NHL.com's rankings.
Yeah.
They're saying the Ducks have lost 22.1 points in the standings, lost due to injured players this year.
Jeez.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Vegas is ahead of them. They have 29.1 points. How does Vegas? How are they behind 29 points? That's crazy.
Is
and then
that
Winnipeg is third.
Marc-Andre Fleury. So Vegas lost 29.1 points due to injury?
So the way the tweet is read, it says NHL top 5, points and standings lost due to injured players.
Okay.
So it says lost points metric, lost points and standings due to injured players. Vegas is first with 29.1 points lost. Ducks 22.1, Winnipeg 18.4, Boston 18.2, and Colorado 16.6. That's the top 5 in the NHL.
So Ducks are second then.
That's crazy. 22 points in the standings.
I feel like Vegas is first because when they had that whole goalie debacle where they were running Maxime Lagacé for 2 weeks or something like that. I feel like that's probably why they're that high. But no surprise the Ducks are up there. The guys that they've lost, and I mean, thanks for getting us back on track here. We were diving down a rabbit hole with Don Cherry, but surviving adversity for that man has been a big part of why they actually clinched the playoff spot. So NHL.com hit the nail on the head with that one. Cam Gibson's been hurt on occasion. Cam Fowler's the latest injury, but going back all the way at the beginning of the season, Lindholm was out for some time. Obviously, Kessler was out for the majority of the first part of the season. Getzlaf missed 19 games after fracturing his cheekbone. Remember when that happened? I don't think we all thought he was going to miss as many games as he ended up missing. And what a key piece he was to have out of the lineup for the Ducks. It's been insane that they've actually been able to muster somewhat of a competitive season. And it makes you a little bit more hopeful for playoffs, knowing that they could have been 22 points better per se if they had everybody injured everybody healthy for the entire season.
Yeah, and that's based a lot, I feel like, on past performance plus what they put up this season in points. So it's great to look at, but it just shows you how much adversity the Ducks have faced this year. And if you want to get to a player here, NHL.com talks about Ondrej Kase.
Yeah.
And that was their number 4. And how could you not look at him as a huge piece? 65 games played, 20 goals, 18 assists. And the big thing that stood out to me with him, though, Eddie, was he has 5 game-winning goals. I mean, he's been there when the Ducks have needed him. I know that's kind of a weird stat because if you win 5-3, the person who scored the 4th goal. If you win 7-2, the person who scored the 3rd goal gets the game-winning goal. But Ondrej Kase has been involved in key points for this Ducks team. And that's huge. They need a player like that to step up, and he's really been a big piece along with Adam Henrique.
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about recently for Ondrej Kase, where he's had 2 of the biggest goals of his career, essentially. He had the game winner against Colorado in overtime, and then he had the game winner against Minnesota with his 3rd period goal to get his 20th of the season. I mean, those are just 2 recent game-winning goals that he's had that have had significant impact on the Ducks season and the fact that they're able to clinch a playoff spot. I mean, not even to take into account everything he's done up until that point, just those 2 goals are so huge for the Ducks. I mean, just they were the big reason they were able to clinch when they were. If those aren't scored and if the Ducks end up losing points in those games, you're looking at a very different scenario right now heading into this last game of the season. So even just those 2 goals are huge, but the fact that he's hit 20 goals, nobody expected this. I mean, a former 7th-round draft pick for the Ducks. I mean, this is insane. Josh Manson's in that same boat. I think he was a 6th-round draft pick. The Ducks find these impact players from nowhere. And it's just been insane. If you have to look at the two guys who have stepped up their game from last year this year and have really impressed, it's Josh Manson and Ondrej Kase. And these are two low draft picks when they're initially drafted. It's insane the how much they've been able to step up this year. Ondrej Kase is just on another level right now. Second in goals behind Rickard Rakell. Second in Ducks forwards and plus minus behind Ryan Getzlaf. He just makes an impact every time he's on the ice.
He's played 65 games for Anaheim this year. If you tick him up to playing all 81 that we've been through so far, you pretty much feel like he'd be right in the 50-something, almost 60-point range. Yeah. That's just how much he's been effective for the Ducks. I could easily see him potting 20 points in those 15, 16 games, getting on a streak. You never know. Yeah. I mean, he's just a dynamic player who can make things happen. Obviously, we'll see what happens in the years to come. I mean, now the teams know who he is. You can target him more. He's going to get big minutes, and he's going to get that nice contract this summer. Hopefully with the Ducks. And we've all talked about that ad nauseum, really, about what his next contract is going to be like. So I don't want to jump down that rabbit hole. As you and I can talk at length what we think is going to happen. But he's going to be a nice piece. Anytime you get a 20-goal scorer, you got to lock him up. Not much you could say other than Ondrej Kase has been just a huge surprise for Anaheim and one that we hope that we keep around.
Yeah, and that kind of contributes to the last thing that NHL.com had as the fifth reason the Ducks were able to clinch a playoff spot, and that was the scoring depth. And it lists here that the Ducks have 5 players with at least 16 goals and 10 with at least 10 goals. And the guy they really identify as depth scoring is Derek Grant. And he has 23 points, 11 goals in 64 games. And it says here it took him 5 seasons with 5 different teams to get his first NHL goal. And now he's at 23 points this year and has been a real mainstay on the Ducks' fourth line and has been that kind of Swiss Army knife where he's been able to move up and down the lineup based on when guys have been injured. And he's played second-line center, he's played first-line center, he's played third-line center, he's played fourth-line center, he's played pretty much every center position you can for the Ducks. He has been a very impressive piece for the Ducks and probably the guy. Ondrej Kase is a big surprise, but I think if you look at who we never thought. I didn't think Derek Grant was going to be a big piece of this team. I didn't think he was going to play 64 games. I didn't think he was going to play 10 games for the Ducks, and he ends up having 23 points.
Yeah, I think that's what we've talked about with him too. That he's going to be that bottom center. He's going to be third or fourth, most likely the fourth line centers because our top nine, we've said night in and night out, is set. But that fourth line center role is definitely going to be owned by Derek Grant. I feel like he's earned that contract after this season. Vermette's not going to come back. We pretty much know that he hasn't played a game. I mean, maybe he played a game kind of recently, but I think it was due to injury, right? And then Getzlaf had the flu. That's why he subbed in. Yeah. I think why that Vermette got to get some minutes in. But yeah, Derek Grant, you got to hand it to the guy. 24 points, actually. He got the goal tonight. He got the second tip, as you said earlier. So he's got 12 and 12 on the season. Good for him, man. He's only 3 points behind our boy Nick Ritchie. So you got our fourth-line center and our first-round draft pick, 3 points separated, and Ritchie's played 10 more games. So go figure how that's going to work for Nick Ritchie this summer. I know I'm a Nick Ritchie hater, I guess you could say. But hats off to Derek Grant. He's had a decent year, I feel like, and the Ducks needed some scoring at that point in the season. He was able to help out.
Yeah, I just anything else you want to mention that? Because I kind of want to move on to something interesting. I don't know if everybody saw it today or not.
Go ahead.
All right, so if you guys didn't see this today, the NHL announced that there will actually be a tiebreaker extra game if teams are tied for the final playoff spot. And that means they're tied on all, I think, 3 or 4 of the tiebreakers that they have. I've never seen this before because I don't think we've ever got this late in the season where it's actually been a possibility of happening. This year there is a possibility because right now, going into tonight, the Philadelphia Flyers currently occupy the final wildcard spot, and the Florida Panthers are the only team capable of catching them currently. The Flyers have 81 games played, Panthers had 80 games played, both are tied in row, and the teams have split their season series. Philadelphia is currently +3 in goal differential, Florida is a -1, so they would have to get even on those to be in the tiebreaker. So if that is the thing, if that's the case, a tie-breaking game will be played, and there'll be an equally weighted draw conducted by the league to determine who will get home ice advantage. And then if the score is tied at the end of that game, it goes into playoff rules for overtime. So they play 20-minute overtime sudden death hockey. I mean, this would just be an insane game. I think this would probably be the only game on at the time. Everybody would watch this game because it'd be like one little mini playoff game, kind of like the wild card game in baseball. It would just be insane to see these two teams somehow go through an entire 82-game season being tied on 3 different tiebreakers and have to play an extra 83rd game of the season.
This league is so stupid. Why is this the thing that they're going to throw in with 3 games to go? What are you doing? Like, you can't pick another tiebreaker. You're going to put an 83rd game on the schedule for 2 teams. Like, really? That's necessary? You can't do, like, goals for? I mean, really, Philadelphia wins that one outright. They have 246 goals for, against 240 for the Florida Panthers. Like, what is the deal with that? I don't understand it, man. I think it's cool, but, like, the fact that they can't solve goaltender interference and they can't solve the offside issues, they can't get rid of headshots, they can't figure out what supplemental discipline is. They let Brad Marchand cross-check a guy in the face and go away with a fine. But all of a sudden now they make up all these rules. They're going to add just this weird game that's going to count for a playoff spot. I like it, but I just don't understand the league at this point. Like, they just make stuff up as they go along, night in and night out. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, I mean, Drew in the chat, he actually said he thinks it's a great idea, and he said he heard that the stats will actually count as playoff stats if they do play in those games. So technically, you would have 17 teams with playoff stats. So whoever lost would have just 1 game of playoff stats, and then the other team would have that 1 extra game, which would be interesting if that one team went the entire way and you were trying to look at who won the Conn Smythe and this guy had an extra game play. I feel like that would be interesting. But I feel like it would be a cool game, but it's very, very weird to throw it in now. I feel like if you obviously you don't know that's going to happen, and they don't expect it to really ever happen that often, but you had to think at some point you might have to deal with this. Yeah, I mean, you've set up this point system, you've set up the regulation overtime wins to try and avoid that, but then you also have all these other tiebreakers. But at some point you had to think that there, at some sort of random chance, that this could happen. And you would want to mention this maybe at the beginning of the season and say, hey, if this is to happen, we're going to have this tiebreaker game, instead of saying, we're 3 days away from the end of the regular season. If this happens, we're going to have an 83rd game, which is going to count technically as a playoff game for stats, but it's going to be like a weird in-between limbo game where it doesn't count for either, but it determines who gets in the playoffs. I don't know. I feel like I'm on the same boat as you. Just come up with a third or an extra tiebreaker somehow. I feel like that's probably an easier way of them doing this tiebreaker game. But the tiebreaker game makes the money, so that's probably the better route to go if you're the NHL.
Oh, no, for sure. And it'll be on NBC because Philadelphia will be involved.
It'll be everywhere.
It'll definitely be on NBC. Yeah, it'll be on NBC for sure.
Yeah, Philadelphia will somehow...
It is interesting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it would be a fun game to watch. Yeah, I would too.
100%. I'll be in.
Everybody
I'm sold
would
on
watch.
it.
It's
this league is just so
game.
dumb. I just don't know how they just make things up all the time. I don't get it. I just understand.
I found it funny that they just announced this, and you. I
was like, what?
Yeah, people were kind of mocking all day. You sent me a tweet by Dave Loza where he put out a same kind of similar press release about an extra game being played for the Blackhawks for missing the playoffs, and it was all about them getting like an extra Stadium Series game and whatnot, which was pretty funny. People were making fun of it all day, and for good reason. But as much as I want to make fun of it, I mean, I would watch it. I mean, I feel like most people would watch it too. But somehow Philadelphia would win that draw to have it on home ice so they could air it on NBC.
I got to read the part of the Blackhawks, the fake Blackhawks press release. It was done in the exact same form because it's funny. It says, at the conclusion of the regular season, the Chicago Blackhawks will have not qualified for the playoffs, so the following procedure will apply. The Blackhawks will play an outdoor game. An equally weighted draw will be conducted by the league promptly upon the conclusion of the last game of the regular season on Sunday to determine which non-playoff team will face the Blackhawks in this outdoor game. I'll cut it there. If you guys don't know, I'll retweet it. It's funny. And if you don't like the Blackhawks, you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But it's just kind of what the league does. They just make stuff up as they go along. I thought it was, and I will tune in. As much as I'm hating on it, I would definitely watch it. But I'm with you, Eddie. Just announce it at the beginning of the year. It's how it's going to work. Or just say it's like, if you have a negative goal differential and then the team has a positive goal differential, then you lose. Like, that's just what the tiebreaker is.
Yeah, no, for sure. I want to get into a question that I had put in our notes here. That it's kind of fitting with this being Beauchemin's last home game for the Ducks, or for of his career in general.